Follow-up?
Yeah, just quickly, I'm reminded as I listen to David, the legislature did actually pass an early childhood bill in the last year. It's not universal by any means, which is the goal for many of us, but it does allow schools and school districts that want to incorporate an early childhood kind of curriculum into their programs to do that. We only meet about 65% of our early childhood care needs in this state, and we got a lot of work to do.
Meaning there's a demand for services and not sufficient.
That's right, far outstrips, and that's sort of quality. And then you have this other issue of folks that are, there was an issue on TV lately where a woman her license was removed, and so I mean we have some serious issues to deal with on this front.
Kesha, do you have any follow-up?
Sure. I mean, I would just add that I see it firsthand every day. When I knock on doors, parents tell me, oh, I really wanted to send my kid to Burlington Children's Space, and I'm on a waiting list for years to get in. And I find it so hard to believe that people who want to send their kids to school and want to give them that head start in their education cannot in our community. I think it's a tragedy, and I think it's something that we really need to fix in the legislature. And that's one of the major issues I'd like to work on when I get there.
Thank you. Dave?
Well, and I'll just add that, one of the things that I don't know if we've explored enough is, certain opportunities for families to get together to sort of co-raise some children as well. Along with larger daycare and childcare centers, what about looking at the regulations and hurdles for 5 or 6 families to say, why don't we each one day a week take each other's kids? There's insurance hurdles, there's a number of regulatory hurdles to doing that. And not to say that that's the panacea that will fix everything, but that may also be a way that isn't overly costly, but could help create opportunities for people without them feeling some of the risks and liabilities. We have to think creatively about lots of solutions because just simply sort of thinking this is a priority, we'll find more money, isn't going to quite solve the problem. We have to come up with solutions that aren't always money-based or, without specific answers.
Thank you very much. I think it's, wait a second.
Go for it.
I gotta get the right number. Hello. You have any questions for our candidates? You've called the right number.
I do. First, I'd like to say I think blue motif for your stage setting is
Okay.
very much improved over what you've had before.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. The towns of Barry and Rutland have recently passed zoning ordinances whereby people on the sex offender registry can't live within 1,000 feet of daycare centers and schools and parks or whatever, which effectively zones those people out of the entire community. And we've recently had other adjoining communities like Rutland Town who now feel that they have to pass something because all the people who would have lived in Rutland City are now going to move outside the city into their community. And if this trend goes on, you can see that, everyone on the theory that they're going to have to protect their community are going to adopt similar ordinances. I know Burlington's looking at one currently. And I was wondering if you think that the legislature has any role in bringing some order to this system rather than letting each town come up with their own solution to people to banish them from their communities because they're on the sex offender registry.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Chris Pearson, why don't you start?
Well, it's a grisly topic, and it's something that, like a lot of families, has touched my family, and it's. If there were easy answers, I would cough them up. In fact, we would have already passed them. I share the caller's concerns that we're sort of on a race now to see which community will be the last to zone sex offenders out. That doesn't seem like a good solution. I think we probably do need some comprehensive leadership on that. I'm hearing more, as I go door to door, more concern about things like Jessica's Law and sort of more kind of a correctional hammer, throwing a hammer at the problem, which I've been resistant. There's good data that suggests those mandatory minimums, as tempting as they are, don't actually lock up more people. And they approach the problem from the attitude of, once something unspeakable has happened to a child in our community or anybody in our community, then we try to solve the problem. I'm more interested in seeing if we can prevent the problem, which doesn't really answer the caller's question. I guess directly, yeah, I think there is a role for the legislature to play, because I think the scenario that he paints is absolutely likely to happen, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, which is interesting. Usually I would favor local control sort of as a matter of principle, but here's a good example where perhaps the state should step in and play a role.
Thank you very much. David Zuckerman.
Well, a few different things. One, I just point out that in 2007 I got an award from the Women Helping Battered Women organization for some of my efforts there. And while that's not exactly the same topic, I think it's very related in terms of people who are abusive, people who prey on folks, whether it's women or children, in really abhorrent ways, violent, it's horrific. I would agree with the caller that the idea of these 1,000-foot limits, basically forcing people out of town or to somewhere else, the way to either rehabilitate offenders and or help stop it in the first place isn't to put scarlet letters on people, isn't to ostracize them from society, isn't to force them into a little hovel somewhere where all they do is, potentially think more about doing these kinds of things, or feel like, well, I'm already an outcast anyway, this is what I know. So I think it's really important to look at this as a societal issue. Everything from the recent Burton snowboards that came out that really just objectify women, and a lot of advertising around clothing and other things objectify women and girls. Certainly not all sex offenders do it to women and girls, but the level of advertising and sex and so forth on TV, I don't think we're going to regulate that. But I think just as a society, we have to say, wait a minute, that's not a program I'm going to watch. And as a society, if we start turning those programs off or not buying those products, then we will all be, as a community, making the difference, because the commercial world responds to the dollar. And if we stop supporting that, then some of that imagery and some of that promotion will hopefully be reduced in our society. And we'll all start to talk about, sort of sex and genders and all of these things as mature adults. The more we say, just say no to sex, or just say, the folks who are anti-choice, who just, say, don't talk about it, abstinence. Every time we put these things into a box we don't talk about, we make them into something they're not. And we need to make sure that sex education is something that is very common in our schools, that talk about who we are as genders and our different parts as a normal part of society, and not an untouchable or a forbidden fruit. Because as long as they're in that category, they become more tempting for people. So it's not really a policy situation, it's more a community situation, and we all need to get this discussion much more common in our everyday lives.
Thank you very much. Kesha.
Sure. I really appreciate the call and the question, and I think there are two values that I'm seeing running in the current of this question and this conversation. A real need to protect our children from sexual predation, which hits home for me watching the kids at my preschool come and go, and also just zoning folks out of the community, marginalizing them further after they've already committed certain crimes that may outcast them socially. And I think that there are ways to reconcile those issues through, as Dave had said, prevention, and really changing the fabric of our community as a whole. We need to be talking to those who work in sex offender rehabilitation and victim advocacy. And I think what the legislature could be doing is really financing education and awareness initiatives so that we can stop male aggression and sexual predation from the start, really educating, particularly as I did at UVM, working on initiatives to educate males about their role with their peers, starting at a young age, to respect women and to respect children and respect people's privacy and their own personal sexuality. And just to make sure that we're constantly driving the message home to people in the community that it doesn't solve the problem to push people to the outskirts of our community. We really need to be looking for ways to prevent these situations and to rehabilitate folks and link them back into the community in positive ways, while also keeping an eye on our kids and making sure they stay healthy.
Thank you very much.